Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Plymouth, Massachusetts on February 24th at 7 p.m. Tonight, we have a case that has been in front of us many times over many years, and hopefully there's a resolve to it. It looks as though there could be some positive steps taken tonight. Not too long ago, we were asked, and before I have the secretary read the legal ad, a little history. We were asked if what Thorndike Corporation wants to do was a major modification, and we determined that it was a major modification. So this is a whole entire new filing. During this hearing, and we've got a lot to get through, I will open this at some point for public comment. This whole board wants your input. We want to hear. What we don't want to do is do a repetitive over and over and over thing again. When a point is made and well taken, we're going to leave it at that. So, and the format that we're going to follow has been a standard format for a hearing of this size, and that is 3 minutes per speaker. If by any chance this gets continued this evening, I am not going to close public comment, because if it gets continued, it's because there are significant things to work out, and the public will have a right to speak to those things. So I want everybody clear in understanding that we do not want to lock anybody out. We do not want to not hear from people. We need everybody's input. We're going to try and make this as palatable as possible for everybody. So with that, I would ask the clerk to read the legal ad for case 4151, Thorndike at Alden's Reach. It's 2 pages, but... Oh, okay. I didn't know you had it.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case number 3284. This is a long one, folks, so bear with me. The Town of Plymouth Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 24th, 2025, at 7 p.m. at Town Hall in the Great Hall to consider the request of Alden Reach LLC, an affiliate of Thorndike Development, successor to Sawmill Development Company, to modify its comprehensive permit dated April 5, 2006, and as amended through July 15, 2024, for phases 2 through 4, now referred to as Alden's Reach, to property located off Kathleen Drive in Plymouth, Mass, as shown on Assessor's Map 73, parcel 4, 5, and 6. The requested modification consists of A, modifying the approved plans to reconfigure the location of proposed units to increase the total unit count allowed under the comprehensive permit from 200 to 232 units, including Phase 1, with the number of units approved for Phase 2 through 4 increasing from 140 to 172 without changing the total bedroom count. The 172 units will consist of 2 and 3 bedroom units. B, modifying the internal roadways, private driveways as shown on the approved plans to accommodate the reconfigured 232 units. C, modify the site plans to accommodate upgrades to stormwater infrastructure, including but not limited to changing the size and location of basins to comply with the Mass Department of Environmental Protection stormwater standards. D, modifying the approved plans to add amenities available to residents of Sawmill and Alden's Reach, including a victory garden, a pool house and pool, and a neighborhood park. E, modify the obligations imposed by the comprehensive permit to Sawmill Development Corp. For Phase 1 to transfer certain obligations to Alden's Reach LLC and modify as follows. 1, the comprehensive permit requires Sawmill Development to repave Kathleen Drive upon completion of the project. Alden's Reach will assume this obligation and request modification as follows. A, Alden's Reach LLC will install traffic calming measures on Kathleen Drive, including crosswalk striping and signage at locations shown on the plans. B, in lieu of repaving Kathleen Drive, Alden's Reach LLC proposes to make a financial contribution of $450,000, $150,000 for each of phases 2 through 4 upon completion of same, to the Shallow Pond Estates Homeowners Association for infrastructure improvements. The tripartite agreement among Alden's Reach LLC, Mechanics Cooperative Bank, and the Town of Plymouth shall be amended to reflect this modification. 2, Alden's Reach LLC will absorb all annual costs associated with operating the wastewater treatment facility that will serve phases 1 through 4, and a new entity will be formed to manage the facility, with said new entity consisting of representatives of Alden's Reach and Sawmill condominium associations. F, modify the approved plans to increase the number of surface parking spaces from 17 to 186, including 8 additional parking spaces for Phase 1. G, modify the approved plans to add an internal roadway connection between Phases 1 and 2. The petitioner or his or her representative and any other person desiring to be heard on this matter should appear at the time and place designated.
Thank you. Seated on this case will be Mr. Leary, Mr. O'Reilly, Mr. Conroy, Mr. Connor, and myself. Who will be presenting?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Peter Freeman, attorney representing the applicant. I will be very brief, really just an introduction. Lloyd Geisinger and David Eastridge are here, the principals of Thorndike Development and Alden's Reach LLC. And the only thing I would just quickly point out is, since the last hearing, they have worked, as they said they would, with the town staff, with engineering, with DPW, as well as with the neighbors, which is why there's mention of Sawyer's Reach in this advertisement and in this application. So we are happy to be here and think that there's been a good progress, and all the improvements and changes so far have been very beneficial and well received. Just edification, if you haven't seen it, your town planner Lee had sent us a draft decision should you get to a vote tonight, which of course is up to you. And we made some revisions and emailed them in this afternoon, so I doubt that you had gotten them, but I just wanted to mention that. And it may not be necessary for tonight, but however you go, I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. For the record, my name is Lloyd Geisinger. I'm the president of Thorndike Development. I'm here with my partner, David Eastridge, and our representatives from Dupree Engineering. Is there a pointer? There's no pointer. Okay.
I have one.
Oh, wait, here we go.
Did you get it?
Yeah, we're just going to make this full screen.
There. Lloyd.
There we go. Okay. And can I hit a couple of the lights? Is that okay? No, I meant to be able to change the slides.
Oh, okay.
But you want to hit a couple of lights? See if this works. Perfect. Okay, excellent. Okay. Well, first, thank you all for the time. For those of you who were not here last year, and as way of summary refreshment, last February, hard to believe a year has passed, this board approved a minor modification for a Phase 2A, which included the next 18 homes at what was then Sawmill, Phase 2, which has been renamed Alden's Reach. And just to start with a reference for anyone who's unfamiliar, Sawmill and Alden's Reach are located where this star is off of Route 3A, and access is gained, as you can see on this map to the left, by coming through Shallow Pond Estates, principally along Kathleen Drive, which is shown here. And this is the extent of the Sawmill / Alden's Reach property. This project dates back to 2006. Thorndike Development got involved last year, a year and a half ago, and this past spring, working very closely with the Phase 1 Sawmill condominium owners, we agreed to separate the property into Sawmill Condominium Association, which is shown here in blue, and which is now controlled by the Sawmill homeowners. And then the remainder of the property is now been created as a separate condominium, Alden's Reach Condominium. There is a Master Homeowners Association that has been formed, again, working with the cooperation of the Sawmill homeowners. And that Master Association will have responsibility for common area maintenance, snow plowing, landscaping, issues of common interest. As you may recall, there is also a private wastewater treatment facility which is accessed from the end of this cul-de-sac located on the Sawmill property. That wastewater treatment facility has been approved for transfer to the Homeowners Association. It will be managed by representatives from both the Sawmill Condominium Association and the Alden's Reach Condominium. So in the interim period, there are representatives from Sawmill serving on it, and representatives from Thorndike. I think Dave has drawn the short straw, is representing Thorndike on the wastewater treatment facility board. So again, by way of harking back, what you see at the top left corner here in the blue box and then in the blow-up was the Phase 2A that was presented to this board and approved after several months of discussion. It included 18 homes, 5 of which are to be affordable. And after a good deal of back and forth, we developed a new prototypical building shown here in the bottom left, which is a triplex home in which the third floor is buried in the roof area and has actually a ground level, one-story condominium targeting seniors, although it's not restricted to seniors, targeting seniors, and then 2 townhomes above. There were more conventional buildings as well that were shown and approved. The bottom right plan shows a conventional townhouse triplex with 3 units. Up above, we have senior condominiums and duplex homes reminiscent of what we built at Summer Reach and Sawyer's Reach. So our whole approach to Alden's Reach at this point is to develop it as a multi-generational community. We as a company are moving away from building strictly over 55 communities. There is really a push across the entire nation, as all these things tend to have a shelf life, to recognizing that for many people, being a part of a community that has seniors as well as other types of families is a very energizing and situation. And we are building a comparable type community in Rainham right now called Larkwood, which has been underway for about a year and a half. And we're getting tremendously positive feedback. And exactly what we had hoped to happen is happening. We're seeing seniors moving in. We're seeing families, or I should say young couples, hoping to start families. Very, very few established families, kind of pulling from both ends of the spectrum. And we expect to see as well grandparents whose kids might be moving into the same community where grandparents could then help with childcare and that type of thing. Just another picture of the architecture. This plan here is actually a plan that we built at both Summers Reach and Sawyer's Reach, very successful, ground level, primary bedroom, one additional bedroom upstairs with a loft space. And here on the right-hand corner, you can see the back of that, that vertical triplex, as we refer to it over here. Top right is a front view of that. So, as I think everyone on the board knows, as a company, we put a very heavy emphasis on new urbanism, on traditional neighborhood design, building streetscapes that are for the people more so than the car. And we have been, our approach to that has been evolving over the past 10 years as we've tried to balance cost, frankly, with pedestrian streetscapes. And we're taking a little bit different approach here, which we're very excited about. This is an image that shows how we are integrating a continuous sidewalk by differentiating patterns and creating a situation so that a car is not in a position to park in front of the garage, but to the extent that it would be parking on the driveway before the sidewalk continues, so thereby reducing the potential conflict between a car backing up and the location of a sidewalk. Here's another view of that, and you can see how the driveway leading up to a garage has been sloped up to well define the edge better, and the sidewalk comes through. And this is, I think, a very good indication. And our intent and the plan reflects using a stamped pattern to continue that sidewalk as whenever it intersects with garages. And we're showing sidewalks, a continuous sidewalk that runs throughout the community on one side, and extended sidewalks wherever there are buildings connecting people from a parking space to the front doors. Just another view giving you a better sense on this of how we expect this will work. And of course, still we are showing a heavy emphasis on street trees, grass areas as well. So the revised master plan that is shown here really follow, and Dave will get into a comparison in a moment, but it follows the same basic street pattern as the approved plan, with a series of smaller neighborhoods down below and a loop road that connects up to Andrews Way. Early in our discussions with this board last year, we had suggested that we would eliminate this second connection, but the Shallow Pond community, in talking with them more extensively, did not like that idea. They wanted to see the traffic distributed between the two ways out to State Road, Route 3A, and so we put that back in and developed the plan around it. But really, the road network is virtually the same. The organization of the buildings and the architecture is different, but the road network is the same. We are showing an additional 32 homes, and this is a comparison of what's permitted currently to what we're proposing. And so just to run through this, in phase one, which is shown at the top here, which is now a separate condominium, which is fully built out, there are no changes. It was built before we entered the picture, and so there are no changes, but we've shown it up here for comparison purposes. When we get down into phases 2, 3, and 4, where there were 105 market rate homes, we are showing 129 market rate homes. Commensurately, the affordable increases from 35 to 43, so a total of 172 versus 140. However, we have introduced a substantial number of two-bedroom homes, where the previous plan had 200 three-bedroom homes, really targeting entirely more of a family orientation. We have introduced the 90, is it 90 or 96? Yeah, 96, thank you. Two-bedroom homes, which are principally these ground-level flats and our more senior homes, like we built at Summer Reach, targeting either seniors or young couples starting out or individuals. So the total bedroom count is actually identical. And that is largely a result of both the unit mix and the fact that the wastewater treatment plant has been designed for 600 bedrooms. So the wastewater treatment plant is based on the bedroom count, not on the unit count. To refresh the board's memory, back in 2022, there was a modification that was approved in which originally they were 30% affordable. That was modified to 25% affordable, but with a cash payment of $990,000, $110,000 of which was paid in connection with Phase 1, leaving 3 payments of $330,000. So I'm wrong. It's 990 left, 1.1, excuse me, 990 left to pay. Yeah, at least I got that straight this time around. It's been a challenge. Sawmill, as it was designed, the overall community did not include any amenities at all. We believe in amenities. We believe that creating amenities are important for neighbors to get to know neighbors, to create places where people can connect with one another, where the kids can get to play in an old-fashioned neighborhood park. It seems like we're so structured these days. And so we have kind of gone back to our basic playbook. And we are showing a very traditional neighborhood park here, which has a little half-court basketball. It has a place to throw a ball around. It has a pool and a pool house and a tot lot for the kids. We're also showing victory gardens, which we have built in every community that we've constructed over the past 20 years. The picture on the right happens to be the Victory Gardens at Red Mill Village in Norton, which was an over 55 community that we built that was named best over 55 community in the nation by the National Association of Home Builders. This pool at the lower level happens to be a pool and pool house that we built in Norton at an adjacent community as well. As I mentioned, there'll be a pool house that goes with the pool, which is really a small clubhouse. And then there's the opportunity for trails throughout the property. There's wonderful open space here in a variety of ways. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dave, who's going to get into some of the nitty-gritty details.
Thank you, Lloyd. So we've been asked a number of questions over the previous weeks that we've decided to insert into this presentation, even though they weren't included in our original submittal. So some of these things you'll be seeing perhaps for the first time. But one was the relationship of the number of parking spaces between the approved plan and our plan. And of note, you'll see that there's a substantial increase in the surface spaces from 17 to 186. This is because the original plan, we would say, was not realistic. It had long 12-foot wide driveways, kind of meandering through the community, and only 17 kind of on-street spaces. The roadways were 20 feet wide, so really no opportunity to safely park on the roads as well. So we've put together a plan that we believe has adequate parking for the community. This is a question that we got along the way regarding impervious cover, and it kind of tells an interesting story. So starting at the bottom, so although there's 3.6 acres in increased impervious throughout the community, you'll see that the building number is 1.6. The actual paving goes down. So there's less paving for vehicular traffic. And again, that's because we are having on-street parking and eliminating kind of these long, meandering, inefficient driveways. Another interesting part is there's an additional, actually this should be 2.4 acres of walkways. So the original proposal only had a 4-foot wide walkway on one side of the road. It didn't show any walks to the buildings. It didn't show any patios. So it was a little sparse and, again, unrealistic. So we have, as Lloyd mentioned, continuous walks on one side of the street that connect throughout the entire community, and in most cases, walks on the other side of the street that connect people from the most appropriate parking to their homes. So this is a comparison of the side-by-side approved site plans over here and our proposed over here. So as Lloyd mentioned, the circulation pattern remains essentially the same. I would say the two exceptions are down here, There's a cul-de-sac at the end of this stub road, and we've created more of a loop road here. And also, there was this driveway that kind of dead-ended here, and we've connected that to Kathleen Drive, or Drum Drive. So we now have kind of 3 connection points here, here, and here to the existing road network within Sawmill. This is something that, in my many discussions with the fire department, they really wanted to have a place that as soon as you got into the community, you could split and go in 2 directions. So it reduced the amount of roadway they would have to traverse that if it was blocked, they would lose access to a large portion of the community, especially as we build out this community phase by phase. Beyond that, it's applying the streetscape that we created and was approved as part of Phase 2A down here throughout the entire community. So this is kind of the example. Lloyd mentioned that when we came before you a year ago, focused primarily on Phase 2A, we also wanted to be forthright and say that we will be back to you in a future date to make a proposal to expand the community to 232 units. So we had originally kind of truncated and had a loop here, but that did not meet with, it was not well received by the Shallow Pond abutters. So we were back to maintaining the 2 access points as is shown in the current approval. One of the other improvements that we wanted to make to the entrance from Kathleen Drive. So this is Kathleen Drive, this is Andrews Way, and this is Kathleen Drive. Right now, there's an existing cul-de-sac in this location. So our proposal, so that cul-de-sac is kind of broken, if you will. The reason that you install cul-de-sacs in the first place is because it's a dead end and you need some place to turn around. In this case, there's been a street added to the cul-de-sac, but it doesn't have the geometry of a roundabout or a rotary. So what's been happening is basically the exit to the site kind of goes like this right now, and so people are driving the wrong way around the cul-de-sac, and it just doesn't really function. So we felt that it was a good idea to eliminate that cul-de-sac and basically replace it with a through street. And we've also modified the intersection here so that Kathleen Drive comes on to this road, which goes towards Alden's Reach, as opposed to this road that goes to Sawmill, figuring that the Sawmill residents would prefer to have less traffic cutting through their neighborhood, getting to Alden's Reach. And also, we are building 140, hopefully 172 homes, more in this direction. And so directing the main flow of traffic towards where most of the homes are, we felt made sense. I've met with both of the direct abutters to the cul-de-sac. We started with them, figuring that without their approval, we would not go forward with this. And they have both, we've gone through a couple designs back and forth, but they have blessed this design. We're going to be paving both of their driveways, but essentially we're rerouting this driveway along the paving that really exists right now. We're taking the sidewalk and road that used to be here and bumping it out. So this resident will get, what is effectively more front yard. And then we're also, with this additional kind of area, we're able to put the sidewalk an appropriate distance away from the paving. Right now, there's this kind of 2-foot impractical strip of mostly grass, dirt that exists between the sidewalk and the actual roadway. So here we can put it 6 feet back to have a room for a row of street trees. So the only outstanding comment that I'm waiting for feedback on from the residents is whether this family wants all of these trees or fewer trees, given that they don't want to rake. Other than that, the plans have been blessed by both abutters. We have had comments from the DPW, which we still need to work through. One of the requests was to have a hammerhead in this location so that plows that are currently plowing Kathleen Drive would have a place to turn around before they entered onto private land. And they may require us to shrink the width of the actual right-of-way and give some of this property and some of this property to the abutting landowners. That's a little bit more complicated process. You know, we're willing to pursue it, but again, a little bit more to work out with the DPW. We started with the residents just to make sure they were on board, and we'll move forward from there. So this is just a map showing the water system, and also shows a connection to the treatment plant. So as Lloyd mentioned, the treatment plant is kind of way down the southwest corner. So this shows where we're looping the water. So again, making a connection to Kathleen Drive here, Andrews here, as originally proposed. This connection right here is a new one, given that we're connecting the roads. Also, there was a request from the DPW to terminate the use of plastic pipe for the water mains, which we have already implemented within Phase 2A. So we're going to be using ductile iron throughout the site. As you may recall, last year, we had made a bunch of, we had performed a traffic improvement plan, We hired our traffic engineers to look at Kathleen Drive, to study it, and make recommendations as to what could be done for traffic calming measures. Shallow Pond has been concerned consistently about speeding within Kathleen Drive. One of the main causes of that is the fact that the roads are so wide, 32 feet wide, so you feel like you can drive very, very fast. So as part of the original proposal, we came up with striping for the center line, for bike lanes, crosswalks, stop signs, speed limit signs. We actually went so far as to install some of the stop signs and stop lines, and that was, we were told by the DPW that we could not do that, that you could not use stop signs as traffic calming measures, and we had to take them out. The Shallow Pond residents did not, they did a complete survey of the neighborhood. It came back that they did not want the additional lane striping. The comment was that if you put a yellow line down the middle of the road, it makes it feel like a throughway and lowers property values. So we took those off the table. So right now, from our original proposal, we're down to raised crosswalks, the associated signage, striping, et cetera. But we're still looking for approval from the DPW on that. So again, been a lot of back and forth over the past year, but we are trying. We've also been very busy working within Phase 1, AKA Sawmill Condominium. The previous developer left a number of required conditions of the permit undone. And as we've been working with them, and they have a great group of trustees now. It's I didn't draw the short straw. They're actually a pleasure to work with. But we've been checking off a lot of the requirements that were, again, left undone, including top coating all of the driveways. We added some parking spaces. We completed the roof drainage. We completed the irrigation. We fixed some other kind of surface drainage issues that have the town has received numerous calls on over the years around the leaching field. We also followed through on most of our landscaping improvements. There's more to come this spring, but that includes a lot of what you see down here, street trees, fencing. Some of these pines are in. We couldn't get some of the shrubs and grasses planted at the fences at the end of last season, so those are scheduled for this spring. But you can see this is what we started with, and this is still a rendering, but very close to reality at this point. Let's see. So one of the one of the instructions from our previous time in front of the board was to not come back until you've studied the water. So we proactively reached out to town staff to have Apex update their water model for this area of Plymouth. I believe Apex purchased or took over Environmental Partners. Environmental Partners did a study on the community of 200 units back in 2017. So they updated it based on our proposal in 2025. And they update their model based on everything else that's happened in this area. New homes, new construction, what have you, over the last 8 years. So here's a comparison. So we had, oops, sorry, wrong button. So we are increasing the number of units from 200, that should be 232. The number of bedrooms, as Lloyd mentioned, is staying the same. We do not have to increase the wastewater treatment plant at all. So the way water demand, this is domestic demand, is calculated, is it's based on the number of people that are going to be residing within the community. The number of people are based on the number of bedrooms. So again, this is the way they do the calculation. So they're showing same number of occupants because there's the same number of bedrooms. And another interesting thing has happened is that the per capita daily consumption within Plymouth has gone down over the last 8 years. This is presumably because people are installing water-saving devices. It's really hard to get plumbing fixtures that aren't water-saving devices right now. And with the new construction within Plymouth, all those new buildings will have the water-saving devices. So, and perhaps there's been other things like water main repairs, getting rid of leaks, et cetera. So the per capita consumption has actually gone down from 69 to 61 gallons per day per person. So this actually shows a reduction from the 2017 model with 200 units to the 2025 model with 232 units, going from 29 gallons per minute to 25.5 gallons per minute. So again, this shows a reduction due to the nature of the calculation, but absolutely there's no increase in domestic water demand. In terms of fire flow, so this is a quote from the Apex report. The model results indicate the additional flows to the development will have a negligible impact on available fire flow to upstream communities on Kathleen Drive and Donna Drive. So for our homes, we require 600 gallons per minute at 20 PSI for the homes that are sprinklered, and 1,000 gallons per minute at 20 PSI for the homes that are not sprinklered. The pressures provided, so this is per the Apex report, are 1,200 to 1,900 gallons per minute. So there's more than adequate flow for our fire prevention needs. They also looked at the overall system capacity. So this is kind of, over long periods of time, does the system, or does the proposal overly tax the existing water system? So, and they had a similar conclusion that essentially the Apex review of the available water supply in the eastern pressure zones indicate adequate maximum supply capacity and firm capacity to meet maximum daily demand across that zone. Apex's review of just the Manomet pressure zone indicates that there's sufficient redundancy to meet the Manomet demands during the loss of the largest source in Manomet. So there's a requirement, so the DEP requirement for determining whether a community has adequate water capacity, they require you to assume that the largest source of water within that zone is out of commission. So be it it breaks down, be it it's getting maintained, one thing or another. So this calculation says that even with the largest well offline, there's still sufficient capacity. And that's our last slide. So with that, I'll turn it back to Lloyd briefly, and then see if you have any questions.
The one thing that I believe we neglected to include in the presentation, but is important to talk about, and that is the commitments to Shallow Pond Estates and what we've put on the table. And this has been a very dynamic and ongoing conversation that actually Dave has been involved with, John Kelly and others at Shallow Pond has been very interactive. And we had, in the written document that was presented to you, proposed increasing the commitment to $450,000. The current comprehensive permit obligates Sawmill Development Corp., and those commitments have been taken over by Thorndike, to resurface Kathleen Drive at the conclusion of the project. And that was a cost estimate of $270,000, is that right, Dave? Yeah. We have Beals and Thomas updating that number, or we're about to, but we believe that the number will now be around $300,000, give or take. We have very current paving figures because we just topped all the driveways at Sawmill. So we have unit pricing from a local paver. Dave is a civil engineer. We're very capable of doing those numbers ourselves, but Beals and Thomas will confirm the numbers. With that baseline in mind, we proposed adding an additional $150,000 to the kitty to respond to the ongoing concerns that we recognize as very legitimate of Shallow Pond residents, to try and start to build a reserve fund against issues that may occur with infrastructure. Specifically, they've mentioned repeatedly concerns over the water system. If something were to go wrong there, who would pay for it? We had initially proposed making a cash contribution to a reserve account of $450,000 and and giving the Shallow Pond Association the option of using those funds as they saw fit, repairing portions of Kathleen Drive, other roadways, using some of it if something came up, and basically putting them in the driver's seat and making those contributions starting very quickly. I'm sure they'll speak to this themselves, but the feedback that we got was, no, we want you to take responsibility still for paving Kathleen Drive, and we'd like a contribution as well to the reserve account. We recognize that this has been ongoing for almost 20 years now, a crazy number. And so at this point, we are prepared to retain the obligation to pave Kathleen Drive and suggesting that it be done no later than 5 years from now. We're prepared to do it even sooner, but Shallow Pond really wants to see most of this project built out before the road gets repaved, as well as making a contribution of $150,000 to a reserve account. It's a little bit tricky how that reserve account might be constituted because, as I'm sure you'll hear from Shallow Pond, the Homeowners Association is a voluntary association. There isn't currently a mechanism, as we understand it, that would be able to hold those funds and take responsibility for dispersing them. And so our suggestion is that they be put into a reserve account managed by the town of Plymouth until, as any one of our reserve accounts that we've run with you have been, for the specific dedicated purpose of infrastructure issues that may come up at Shallow Pond. And at such time that Shallow Pond is able to reorganize and have an entity that can effectively manage those funds and possibly add to them, that there would be provision that it could be turned over to Shallow Pond. That's just a suggestion on our part. The proposal that's on the table right now, based on feedback from Shallow Pond, as I mentioned, is that we would retain the obligation to resurface Kathleen Drive no later than 5 years from now. And in addition, on an incremental basis, we're proposing $5,000 per unit prior to the issuance of each occupancy permit, that we would make a contribution of $150,000 as the units close. So I just wanted to add that. I'm sure you'll hear more about this from the Shallow Pond folks. And with that, we're obviously happy to answer whatever questions you might have.
Okay, stay there.
Stay there? Okay. Just get my water.
Any questions from the board members at this point? because we're receiving a lot of information, and let's start talking about some of it. David, do you have anything?
Yes, I would like to know about what the grades are. As I look at the drawings for your master plan, it looks like it's mostly 3-to-1, but I saw at least one area, maybe more, of 2-to-1, fairly steep grades. Our bylaws, require, well, first of all, I want to see how you're finishing things, and our bylaws do require riprap when things get exceedingly steep. So I would like to hear what overall the grades are, and if you have steeper areas, how you plan to deal with them.
Okay, Dave?
You good?
Good evening, Brandon Carr with DePreet Engineering. So for the majority of the site, you're correct, we tried to maintain a maximum slope of 3-to-1, so that's especially around the basins. There's a few areas where we have kind of more constraints on grading and kind of a balance between, obviously the project got a little larger, the basins got larger more from a standpoint of the regulations have changed a lot in 20 years, so the amount of water and things that we have to control got bigger, so that pushed kind of the limits of the work, especially on the kind of interior of that loop. And then on the northern side of the Phase 3-4 road, as you get towards that property line where we're kind of tightest to that property line. So we do have areas where there's proposed retaining walls, and we have one or two areas where I think we're kind of in the 2-to-1 range as we get into a retaining wall condition. We've called out those areas to either be permanently stabilized somehow, either with a riprap or there's other kind of means, kind of reinforced turf if necessary. We recognize that the sandy soil conditions make slopes and things different in Plymouth than, or in the Cape and areas like that than other areas of the state. But we've tried to, at a maximum, kind of maximize the usage of those 3-to-1 slopes and add walls where appropriate.
And how will you finish the 3-to-1 surfaces?
We're proposing lumen seed, a grass condition, probably on like the lower slopes where, you're approaching the wetlands. We do more of a natural mix, allow it to revegetate, more of a meadow condition we've seen a lot, that you're not mowing it as much as you would mow a lawn. Maybe you're knocking it down every couple times a year to get rid of that woody vegetation, but you're allowing it to kind of revegetate back into a more natural state than a grass slope.
Okay. Thank you. And a second question, Mr. Chairman. You had also said that the amount of coverage on the site still is within normal or expectations. But I'd like to see what that is, because you're adding buildings and you're adding a lot of the surface parking lot. So I'd like to understand what the overall percentage of site coverage is and how much it's changed, because I think it has gone up.
Yeah, so
overall.
I don't know if I can go back to David's slide here.
Yeah,
with
because
the-
you mentioned it.
Yeah, so we'll talk about so here's the impervious coverage in acres, and I'll talk to the percentage in a bit. So you can see the buildings. Obviously, we're adding more buildings. The buildings go a little bit larger. So there's an additional 1.6 acres of impervious coverage associated with buildings. Now, some of that coverage, and I don't have the exact number, but I'd guess a third to a half of that doesn't make it to the stormwater basins. They're handled in dry wells at the building. So a little more of that is handled at the source than it was previously. The paving, it seems counterintuitive when you look at, we're adding 176 spaces. I think it illustrated it well on one of the slides Lloyd talked to when it had the side-by-side, but you can see, well, you can see on this slide, I forget exactly where it was, but the old layout, you can see these very long driveways, especially down here. You've got a couple 100 feet of driveway serving these, 4 units at this one here. So the roadways themselves, for the most part, stayed roughly the same. The driveways we're talking from a 100-foot driveway to a 30-foot driveway by the time you have that parking space, the sidewalk, and then your garage apron. So the pavement that's made up of the driveways or the circulation roads or the parking that was included before is actually decreased. So for asphalt services, excluding sidewalks, we've gone down about slightly less than an acre, I believe, 0.8 acres. Now, the walkways, again, increase. So overall, we're about 3.6 acres more of impervious. The site in general is about 58 acres. I don't have the exact acreage of phase one, probably about 12 acres. So you're talking, what's that, 3 acres over 50 acres, 7% more impervious coverage collectively. Now, to deal with that, in one of the first meetings we had with the town was, especially the DPW, zeroing in on stormwater treatment. Since 2006, when this was permitted, the state has new stormwater regulations, new stormwater handbook. The kind of hit it in a number of folds. We have a minimum amount of water quality volume that we have to calculate that wasn't factored into the original design. We have different treatment chains, so there's bigger footprints and practices. So instead of just dumping everything into a detention basin, we have sediment forebays, sand filters, infiltration basins. We have a number of recharge that we've got to hit. We've got bigger storms that we've got to hit. So even with the impervious increase, we're handling that under the current regs. I would venture to say that, collectively, stormwater treatment-wise, we're removing more pollutants, we're infiltrating more stormwater, we're treating more water quality than the original design was, just because of the update in the regulations. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but I think the 100-year storms increased 2 or 3 inches of rainfall since 2006 to today. So that all collectively, additional impervious, higher rainfall amounts, everything, really made the stormwater system much more robust. I mean, if you have, it's tough to see at this scale, but you can kind of, the darker circles are the previous ponds, and the red circles are the proposed pond complex. So most of them have kind of grown. We have a couple new ponds, and they've all about doubled in size. So we are increasing impervious, and I can get you exact percentages if that's what you want, but we've also improve the stormwater treatment system kind of hand in hand with that.
David, just to be clear, I think you said you're working through things with DPW?
Yes.
So we don't have a final from DPW here?
DPW issued their report to staff, and we've issued a response to comments to each one of their items. Again, we don't see anything that is, nothing, no red flags, nothing troublesome in there. So as, often occurs, you end up working through some of those details as you go into, let's say, more of the day-to-day permitting, the building permits, getting your water connection permit, that type of thing. So a number of the comments relate to things that are a matter of course.
And we have, as I read this, yet to receive a planning board report.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, there was a meeting, I believe, 2 weeks ago with the planning board that where Lloyd presented.
All right, just wanted to make sure I'm in the right place.
But just to address that, Peter, there were 2 issues that the planning board raised that prompted the deferral of a recommendation. The principal one being working out an arrangement that was that Shallow Pond Estates and this board felt were, and obviously Thorndike felt were comfortable with. That was the principal thing. There was some discussion as well about the $110,000 payments and getting some clarification on that. Mr. Grandy in particular wanted us to consider raising that number just as full disclosure. And those were the 2 issues that were raised by the planning board and prompted our suggesting that we would come back another time, unless, of course, we can come to agreement, principally on the Shallow Pond Estates issue.
Also, I wanted to let you know, we met with the Manamet Steering Committee last week as well, so I'm not sure whether their letter made it into your packet or not. But yes, they voted to encourage this board to support the town accepting their roads to help facilitate affordable housing, and then but voted to kind of table any further comment at this time.
Don't you think they kind of didn't say that a little bit? They're saying maybe if you work together with the shallow ponds, we'll support whatever you guys do. I mean, it was a pretty weak
Yes.
recommendation if I've ever heard one.
Yes, we were there for about, it was getting a little late, and, it was,
I read the recommendation.
yeah.
Michael, you got anything?
No, I looked over the plans. I mean, you've already answered a couple of mine because I was concerned because they did point out the PVC piping on the water, that's being changed. By the way, your plans were excellent compared to sawmills. The original ones, God, I couldn't believe we even accepted them. But anyways, yeah, well, yeah. But anyways, so your plans were good. I didn't have a problem. I think your parking you're putting in is definitely a better situation, in the sidewalks, for sure. I was hoping we'd get something in writing on an agreement between you and this paving thing afterwards, because that is something I was more concerned about. And I suppose I was probably a little disappointed, but I understand on connecting to Andrews Way.
I'm sorry, I'm what?
Andrew, the connection to Andrews Way, I thought originally, it was gonna be brought back into that loop, but I understand, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate concern, there's no question that the way the property splits out, in all likelihood, if I can get this thing to point, there we go. People living in this area will split to the north, and those below will split to the south, and there'll be a distribution of traffic in that regard. I do want to, if I could, and we should have put more emphasis on this, one of the things that, as part of this major modification, is we have scrubbed the plans completely, as you pointed out. These plans were not, in large part due to the passage of time, were not up to any of the current standards, and they are now entirely. So.
I noticed that.
Now, we wouldn't mind if we could roll the clock back some, but that's not in the cards.
Was that the case with the spacing of fire hydrants?
The spacing of the fire hydrants?
Well, there was a comment that they were 800 in the NFPA recommendation is 500.
So
Is
there
that from
were.
the old plans? That's-
Yeah, there were two comments regarding hydrant spacing. One from the DPW that requested, that said we needed to have them 500 feet apart, and then, which is what I'm used to hearing. The fire department actually wanted them 400 feet apart, so we're going to comply with that.
You're going to move them?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll comply with the more restrictive recommendation.
But we could assume probably that the 800 was probably appropriate way back then?
Oh, if you're referring to the original plans,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Trying to bail myself out.
I'm not,
How you making out there, Pete?
I'm trying to, kind of step lightly, but, this comparison table of impervious between the previous plan and our plan, it's not fair at all, because their plan never would have gotten built that way. It's just, people would have been belligerent, having to park on their lawns to get around anybody, their neighbors, having to back out for 100 feet before they can turn around. So they don't show any walks, they don't show any patios, but that's all we had to work with. So that's an honest comparison with what's on the plan, what was on the plan with what's on our plan, but it's not fair.
Okay, David, you've done enough damage. Thank you very much.
ahead.
So I did have some concerns reading my packet in the discrepancy between the paving that you had proposed and the information we're getting from folks in Shallow Pond, but I'm interested to hear what the folks say about that. Sounds
course.
like you may have come to an agreement, and would like to see something on that, and I'm interested to hear what the neighbors have to say. So thanks.
Ed, do you have any questions at this time?
Sure. So if you looked at the email between Attorney Murray and Attorney Freeman, it referenced that the payment is in lieu of paving, Catherine, altogether. So, and then what I heard from you, you were saying that there would be paving.
Right, so the proposal that was in your packets was one that was where we were at that point in time in our discussions with Shallow Pond. We were back and forth, and those conversations have continued over the 6 or 8 weeks since that package was sent in to you. And we have, in fairness to Shallow Pond, John Kelly and his group were reaching back out to their constituents to get feedback, and while we had initially thought when we put that together, and frankly we still feel, that a cash payment was an appropriate position to take, it's very clear at this point in time that they would prefer that we continue to have the obligation and therefore take on the risk associated with any cost inflation that might occur to pave Kathleen Drive.
So you're looking at it from, you have folks that are not professionals in paving.
I'm sorry?
You have homeowners at Shallow Pond Estates that are not well-schooled in paving. So you're going to give these folks $150,000, $450,000, say, you just run with the ball, Jimmy.
No,
You know,
that's
I don't
not,
think that's, I mean,
no, that's,
So, but I know that's been changing, but what I don't want to see is you just step away from the responsibility that it's theirs, that they hold the ball, and we've been talking about paving Catherine Drive since, I think I was born. And so I think there has to be, like, reading the back and forth, and, I'm a lawyer, so I read commas, I look at inference. And I am somewhat concerned where Shallow Pond Estates, I want to make sure that they are advised correctly, and you folks are the professionals, the developers, and I just don't want a situation where they're left, you guys have taken the profits and left, and Phase 4 is done, and we have some money in a kitty, and we have some folks that are maybe louder or more boisterous for Shallow Pond Estates, using money not in the best manner. So I'm very interested in looking at the agreement, the written agreement, when that comes down. And I'm not in favor of approving anything until I see an agreement between the parties, how the money's going to be spent on that. And then also, the fire department recommends that, in relation to sprinkling, that all units install a residential fire sprinkle system. That's from their memo dated February 12th. And I heard from you, sir, that it's not that way. And and then also that the fire hydrants be located within 400 feet of every dwelling. So I'd like to find out on what's going on, the percentage of what's sprinkled and what's not sprinkled.
So the evolution of the discussion regarding sprinklering units. So originally, as we've mentioned before, again, I'll see if there's a better, yeah. So when we were here last year, we showed a road that looped down here and did not have this connection out to Andrews. So the department, the fire department, was not in favor of losing that second means of egress without us doing something else to kind of offset that lack of access. So at that time, we said, okay, well, we'll sprinkler the units in compensation for not having that second means of access. So we have now put that access back provided that second means of egress to the fire department, and now wish to, again, as we're doing with the second means of egress, basically go back to where we were and sprinkler the units that are required to be sprinklered. So that is, we're sprinkling the triplexes, and we don't plan to sprinkler the duplexes or the single families. That's consistent with all codes. So that is our plan. But we are, again, we're going to have to satisfy the fire department. We're not going to get any permits without satisfying the fire department. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of how we phase this and how they get access during each phase. And we've had those conversations to date with Phase 2A about, okay, if you're building over here, we want at least a gravel road looped out to here. And we're going to continue to have those conversations as we build throughout the community and just make sure that they have appropriate fire access. But the lines of communication are open.
Also on the proposed, on the lower left, like on the old one, there was a cul-de-sac that went around a circle there, and then on the new one, it just seems like is that a dead end? The lower, keep on going down.
Oh, right here?
Yes.
Oh, so that's, basically that's a driveway to get to the wastewater treatment plant building that's located right here. So, and it provides, there's, probably 2 units, 3 units that have their driveways right here.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Waller, do you have anything?
I have some questions for Mr. Geiser. I'm going to ask you, and my question may not be, or my request may not be possible for you to answer. I think you explained to us early on that the financial considerations were still in discussion, or at least the method of turning the money over to somebody who will be responsible for it was still open, and your suggestion was that somehow the town of Plymouth takes control of it.
We're talking about the shallow pond money.
I am.
Yes.
The other thing is that I'm aware of, and you've also mentioned it, is that there is no official HOA, Homeowners Association. There is a group of volunteers, and some people choose to join it, some people don't, which is typical. It was never set up originally, and that continues to be a challenge for the homeowners. The third thing I remember was that there was great concern in terms, should the, I'll use the word concrete, water mains split, break, as has happened in other places, who and how is that going to be paid for? And that would be a great burden to the homeowners if, since they have no formal way of assessing the residents. So, and the other was, and it was brought up by Mr. Conroy, the homeowners are not experts in understanding what the cost is and how the cost may or may not change in the future to repave Kathleen Drive. And it's not inexpensive, and I appreciate it. And I do, and I just want to, I do very much appreciate the way the majority of the residents and yourself and your firm have worked together to find solutions. So I don't intend to be throwing arrows, but I do intend to ask you if you can flesh out a little more of those questions I've asked.
So we've now taken off the table the suggestion that we would not have responsibility for paving. To say it in the positive rather than the double negative, the permit requires the developer, which, as I mentioned, Alden's Reach has taken over the obligations of Sawmill to pave Kathleen Drive. We intend to meet that obligation. And we are no longer proposing that we modify that aspect of the permit. We are proposing that in addition to taking on that obligation, we are prepared to make a $150,000 contribution to a reserve fund to address the issues that Shallow Pond has raised, separate from the paving, with respect to concerns over who would pay if there was a problem, most specifically with the water lines that have been raised. And that $150,000 would go a long way towards dealing with any issues that might come up. We would hope that over time, Shallow Pond is able to create a situation in which they themselves would add to that reserve fund. It's unfortunate that over the past 30 years, there has not been a requirement, as there is in every community that we've ever built, for the association to continuously maintain their property, to continuously contribute to a replacement reserve. None of that has occurred. While we are willing and proposing to participate in a solution, we don't know that it's fair for us to shoulder the entire burden in that regard, but we are trying to give them a good jump start.
Do you have an alternative solution or idea? I'm not sure the town would want to step in and be the arbitrator of how that money is spent and take a formal role.
Well, Tom, I think you're retired now. Maybe that's something that you'd like to
Thank you, but
take
no,
on.
thank you.
Oh, okay. I think that, that seems like a pretty good solution to us, but, alternatives would be to establish a separate trust with a fiduciary obligation to disperse the funds. We're doing that in another community, and that's certainly something that we could explore. We would need counsel to help us work through that, but it seemed as though, yes, I haven't really thought beyond that, but if that's an issue, that's certainly something that we would work through one way or another.
What type of fiduciary would handle that?
Excuse me?
What type of fiduciary would handle such an obligation?
Well, we have a situation in a community that we're about to start in Nashua, in which we've created a trust that has an obligation to disperse funds for the ongoing operation and maintenance of, in this case, a landfill. And so, but the concept, I believe, would be the same, that there would, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm way out of my domain here, but at least in that case, there is a trust, and there's in that case, the Department of Environmental Services has the ability to replace the trustee if they're not doing their job. In this case, it might be the town that would have an opportunity if they're not doing their job, and they then are obligated to disperse the funds. That's just a thought.
So the town is the,
Beneficiary.
kind of like the trust protector.
Right.
So the town acts as the, if the fiduciary isn't doing a good job, the town has the authority to step in and remove the fiduciary, the trustee who's the fiduciary, and the fiduciary would be a member of the community. Is that-
Could be a member of the community, yes.
So for that landfill, is that fiduciary a corporation or is
Yes.
it an individual?
It's a corporation there.
So the corporation would charge usually 1% of assets under management as a fiduciary fee?
I
1.5?
wish it was 1%. It's actually a little higher than that, but yes.
Yeah. So that's off the principal per year,
Right.
which is a steep fee.
I like the idea of having the town manage the account, but that's the only alternative that comes to my mind, because I'm not doing it. I got stuck doing that once in Hudson, Mass. I'm still the trustee of an entity there.
All right. Thank you. That's one sketchy proposal.
I was just suggesting it on the fly. We can
All right.
investigate other options
All right, thank
further.
you.
I'm going to ask Carolyn to explain that to us a little bit better. If they were to put $150,000 in a fund that's controlled by the town, and all of a sudden somebody on Kathleen drives something in the road or something breaks, how would the people at Kathleen Drive get at those funds in order to fix that? And secondly, who in the town would be in charge of that money?
So, Mr. Chair, those are all excellent questions, and questions that need to be answered in order for this structure or an alternative structure. My first thought when I read through this proposal was, there are rules of municipal finance law. the town doesn't just take money and sock it away into separate accounts to be used for a dedicated purpose. There would have to be, I suppose it could be in the form of a gift account would be one thing that might work for the town. Sometimes there can also be, like a special act of legislation that creates an account. It's the closest comparison I think I could come up with here is sometimes we see this, we see the trust fund commissioners, for example, with like scholarships for the schools. Someone passes away and makes a bequest, and the funds go to, or are under the custody of, say, the trust fund commissioners and are to be dispersed according to the terms of whatever the donor's intent was. But those are also things that are recognized with a statutory structure for municipalities. We're not typically in the business of holding money for neighborhoods in perpetuity. I mean, another example would be when we see with subdivisions. We always want a bond, a surety, a tripartite agreement, something like that, that is in place to ensure that the roads get built, the infrastructure gets constructed, and eventually we all agree the work is done and the bond is released or the tripartite agreement terminates. This is a little unusual to do it this way. I'm not suggesting it cannot be done, but I also don't know whether there has been any communication yet with the proper folks within the town to even ask, is this something the town would even want to take on?
Exactly. That gets back to my question. They're asking us to do something that I don't know if the town even wants it done. I don't know if the finance department has a vehicle to stick this into. I don't know if anything about that. And until that is resolved, that's an issue.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman. We are trying to work with a homeowners association that doesn't have the authority to receive the money. Honestly, it shouldn't be our problem. Our commitment and proposal is to address the financial shortfall that they currently have. Setting up a mechanism by which they would be able to administer those funds, honestly, that should be their issue, not our issue, because they're the ones who haven't maintained the roads, with all due respect. And we're not casting blame, but we are saying, from our perspective, we've heard that they have a need, we're willing to meet that need. But creating a structure that allows them to receive the money, I would suggest that the money, in some fashion, be, just as you often hold bonds, as was pointed out, for the completion of, to ensure that our obligations are met. Maybe it's that for the period of time that this project is under construction, these funds are part of the normal surety that you would look for from us. And within that 5, 6, 7 year period, they need to figure out how to take the money. I don't know that this should be our problem. And we're trying to be helpful.
Who's next?
The Manomet Village Steering Committee, who they've met with, in the third paragraph of their February 21st letter, they indicate that the Manomet Village Steering Committee voted to advise the Plymouth Planning Board to take whatever steps are necessary for the town of Plymouth to accept the current established streets. Now, the town of Plymouth has been maintaining the streets in terms of snow plowing. Oftentimes that's done in case of a fire or an emergency, even though they're not accepted streets. The residents, I know, are concerned if a water main should break. the process to have the streets accepted, presumably, the article would be sponsored by the planning board. It would be put on the warrant for town meeting, and town meeting has the ability to accept the streets. The residents there pay their taxes, they have their children in the schools. Quite frankly, having a street accepted is not an easy proposition with the town meeting, but it is the acceptable way to have the town have the responsibility in the future for the entire streets. I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know if I have a solution, but I have an idea. I think you've suggested is $200,000 or $300,000 that you're gonna spend for paving, or 150. The numbers get a little confusing. And I have, in the past, chatted with some folks down the Shallow Pond area. And that is a process by which they can, when the warrant comes out, they can hold an article. If it's sponsored by the planning board, so much the better. And the presentation is to town meeting, and town meeting has the ability to accept those streets and whatever money may be offered in order to accomplish that. It is, again, I'll repeat, it's not an easy situation, but town meeting is not unfamiliar with accepting roads. So I'll end it with that.
An alternative proposal that we kicked around internally, given that this discussion is moving in one direction, would be that we would agree to not only repave Kathleen Drive, but to upgrade the roads in whatever manner the DPW determined was appropriate, short of granite curbing, for it to be accepted, for them to recommend acceptance at town meeting. So take on a larger obligation to upgrade the road, which I'm sure would also include inspecting the entire water main and making whatever repairs the DPW felt were necessary for them to make a recommendation to town meeting. And furthermore, we would be willing to provide the technical support, to your point, Mr. Conroy, to assist Shallow Pond in making that application and doing whatever engineering is required and so on and so forth. So a complete package relative to Kathleen Drive, as long as it does not include granite curbing.
That sounds like a more reasonable approach to things. Yes, Ed?
Just like to hear what Jason has to say about it.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to finish with board members first. Anybody else? Okay, Jason, go ahead.
If there is a way to work that sort of scenario out, I do think that it's a desirable outcome.
If I could just add one point to it, and that is, frankly, even if in the end the DPW, even if in the end town meeting did not accept the road, at least it would have been brought up to that standard, so that it would essentially be given a new life, if you will.
I know a little bit about getting roads accepted. As you know, never mind.
Yeah, exactly.
The possibility of getting Kathleen Drive accepted as a town road, if you do everything that you said you wanted to do, is pretty positive.
Okay.
Because the town wants roads that are up to standards, and that they're not going to have to go in 5 years from now and spend a ton of dough and everything. And that's one reason a lot of these roads don't get approved right away. It takes years. But you get a road that's all up to snuff and everything, it gets put on town meeting pretty easily.
Well, Mr. Grande was making that point at the planning board meeting, you know, that there's been a little bit of a change in perspective on that type of thing. So that could be an alternative that we would be willing to accept as a condition.
In my experience at town meeting is if staff recommends it, planning board recommends it, 9 times out of 10 it gets approved, but you have 10 times out of 10 that said, I haven't seen one that's gone through the process that has not been accepted by town meeting. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean you can't do your homework ahead of time, but it sounds,
Right.
this sounds like a very reasonable plan.
Okay?
It probably, in the long run, for you and for shallow ponds and for the town, is the most reasonable resolve for you and your corporation to help them get Kathleen Drive accepted. So if that means doing what you're saying and bringing it up to the standards and everything, that's probably cheaper than fighting this for another 15 years.
To be honest with you, standing here right now, I don't know the answer to that. But, to Mr. Conroy's point, we're the experts. We know what we're doing. We have the wherewithal to do it. We recognize that Shallow Pond has been very supportive. We've enjoyed working with them. We'd like to be helpful. And frankly, having a better-looking road that takes our potential customers from Route 3 into, so at least there's a vested interest on our part. And honestly, I'm sure this would take a couple of years to do, but it's something we'd be prepared to start on right away. We need the DPW's cooperation in understanding, what they would need and working through that process.
Good. Yes.
So, this whole thing's gonna take some time. So, I assume, or you're willing to put up a surety bond or a type of bond to, this gets ironed out later and the agreement ironed out later?
Yes, and in our proposal, we said that we would increase the surety bond that the town currently has to $450,000. So
Okay.
that would be a condition of the approval as well, and something we've talked with our bank already about doing.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, David?
Just one final question coming back to design and infrastructure. I've looked to hear, I didn't hear, will there be lawn irrigation
Yes.
systems? There will be.
The place will be fully irrigated.
Because I did not see in the Apex Water study any mention of irrigation and how that might affect demand.
Private wells. It's all going to be on private wells.
You'll have a single private well to...
We have already sunk multiple private wells that will cover a good two.
Okay, so the irrigation system will not change
have
the
any-
demand on the town's water
Have
system?
nothing to do with town water.
All right, thank you.
Buster, can you turn the lights? Can we turn the lights on?
I'm sorry.
I'm blind, so it doesn't make any difference to me.
You ready? See this stuff, it's tough.
The only thing I'd point out to the board is the comments from Chief Foley on his suggestion on the sprinkler systems in all of the units. It is accurate that the building code would not require it by nature, but it is a request by the chief, so it would have to be specifically a condition of the permit or not.
So just to be clear, we as David mentioned, we are no longer prepared to sprinkler. We cannot both economically build that road out to Andrews Way, which is a very expensive road to build, and sprinkler homes that are not required by code to sprinkle. So that proposal is not part of what we've put before you. It's not something we can agree to. It's a substantial additional cost, and these homes are already too expensive to build and to market.
All right, have you anything else you'd
No,
like to
thank you
say
very
at
much.
this point? At this point, I'm going to open this to public comment. And again, before we start, I'm going to reiterate that if you have something to say, wonderful. But if it gets repetitive, I'm going to shut it off. And everyone gets no more than 3 minutes. And that's been standard for us for many years. So I think Pete made that rule. You're getting under the bus all the time. So with that, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Mr. Joseph, you have 3 minutes.
So there are other options. My name is John Joseph, 65 Kathleen Drive, and I'm going to be very brief. I've got a situation at home where I have to leave, so I appreciate the fact you letting me go first. I'm going to read this, but in the context of what I've heard, I'm going to take a little bit of that 3 minutes and mention everybody's talking about paving and the road and who's going to be fiduciary responsibility and will it be a trust or an LLC, and I'm quite familiar with all of this because I happen to be in that business. But my concern is liability. There's sidewalks there, there's a water line there. If somebody has a slip and fall in front of my house, I'm liable for it. If the road isn't plowed or plowed property and there's an auto accident in front of my house, it's going to end up in court. And some liability lawyer is going to name me as the defendant because I didn't plow my part of the road. So as you start dealing with dirt and asphalt, I'd like you to deal with the liability implications of all these extra cars driving over private property. As far as the water line is concerned, I'm sure the fire chief would not like to have the hoses on his pumpers owned by the residents and the gate valves on the trucks owned by the residents. But that, in fact, is what you have in Shallow Pond Estates. Every piece of that water line is owned by the resident in which the pipe is in front of. As you learned the last time, the fire hydrants are owned by the people whose property they fall on. So you face some intangible issues here that are critical. Now, I'm going to read my statement because I do have to leave. First of all, I think this is great. This is the first meeting I've been to where we're into problem solving and not fighting with each other. And now I'm going to read the statement. I believe that after 20 years of concern in 3 developers, a solution can be found that because Thorndike has demonstrated an attitude in which they're willing to work with the board. Historically, a couple of you will go back to 2004, 2006. And the reason we were so litigious then was because Tringali and Pomeroy, a little bit of history, and I'm really reading
You have 30
this.
seconds.
All right. Here's what the bottom line, if you're going to hold me to that. I'm going to go to the select board and recommend that a committee be established comprised of members of town government officials, Thorndike, and some of the residents of Shallow Pond Estates, and we negotiate a settlement. It's within reach. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you read the fire chief's letter, he didn't mention anything about fire breaks, and yet there are
Mr. Joseph,
codes
your
that
time is
require that there be fire
I'm
breaks.
going to give you another minute.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
I'm going to wrap it up. Apex report is incorrect. And the reason is the model they use to determine adequacy of water pressure is not the right one. They use an area-wide model. But if you know anything about computer modeling, then the model has to be specific to the situation. And I doubt very much that the people living along Andrews Way and Donna Drive would fit that average model. It covers all of Manametta and I think Cedarville as well. So you need specific models for particular areas if you're trying to solve a problem. So there are some deficiencies in these reports, and I relate that to the fact that we've got the reports late. I picked up all these copies Friday at noontime, so I'm kind of winging it here. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I
Okay.
think we can do it in a
No.
cooperative manner. And I'm out of here.
Thank you.
But the select board, I'm coming to you and asking you guys to get involved because we can
Mr.
speed
Joseph.
this whole thing up by cutting out all these laborious meetings.
Mr. Joseph, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Please. Your name?
Jennifer Semino of 59 Drum Drive. I'm also the chairperson of the Sawmill Woods Condo Association, Homeowners Association, and one of the board members of the overall HOA. And so I was just calling, not calling, oh, can you tell what I work at? Before you, just to say that especially the Board of Trustees for the Condo Association has worked very well hand in hand with Thorndike, going over all of their proposals for the major modifications. And, I can't speak for all the homeowners, but for the Board of Trustees, it's been a very open line of communication between the board and the HOA and with Thorndike. We get apprised of the conversations that's going on with the Shallow Pond homeowners too, so they've kept us informed about all of what's going on there, as best they can. And, at least for the Board of Trustees and from my conversations with several of the homeowners, we do support the, modifications as they are. We can't speak to what's going on with Shallow Pond as we're not a party to that, but we do feel that both sides have made great efforts in communication from what it was prior. So I just wanted to lend our support and, say that we do support the changes that they're looking to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody that wants to speak in opposition? Yes, please. I have to say that. Pete taught me.
Sally Hertz, 18 Penny Lane in Shallow Pond. So I know that you all received our letter saying what we were requesting to have happen. I do have to say that Thorndike has been wonderful, and Dave in particular has been wonderful in working with us, and we really feel as though we will come to a solution. There are just a few points that I'd like to bring up. We were asking during this opening for the major modifications that Kathleen Drive actually have rehabilitation and reclamation. And I think that would be based on the town's Beta pavement management report. And we'll see even within that report that there are certain areas that say need to be have reclamation and others rehabilitation. So we would look at that, would take a look along with you all and the DPW. We would need the town experts to help us with that. But with the change in the opening of the second access road onto Andrews Way, we would like to request that Andrews Way and Donna Drive be included in the permit that would require road rehabilitation and reclamation. This may be able to be done outside of the permit, but we are formally requesting that that be part, so you would at least take a look at that. It may be a case that if you were to say we really can't do both, Andrew seems to be in much better condition, and again, through the Beta report, than Donna. And Donna will become, part of a major access and egress. We also ask that the developer, and again, this may be able to be done outside of the permit, but we're asking at least that you look at it if we cannot come to an agreement, that Alden's Reach, whether it be the developer, as long as they're involved, or the master HOA, have proportional responsibility for the ongoing maintenance and repair of the 6 unaccepted roads and underlying infrastructure. It really would be, because of a situation where you have the various dominant and servient relationships, that they really should take some responsibility. So if a water main were to break, the decision would be, or the ability would be, to have both of these neighborhoods, HOAs, the umbrella HOA, help or have some obligation towards it. It really is a case that the residents, and I think we will come to an agreement, but the residents currently in Alden and Sawmill are really being held captive by no fault of we, the residents of Shallow Pond. We didn't know, A, that they were unaccepted roads.
You gotta,
I'm trying. They're really being held captive to the financial responsibility and actions of the private citizens of Shallow Pond, while we're all trying to decide, who has responsibility to fix the water main break. They will be having an issue with that. The town does take care of the roads. There are some minor modifications through Chapter 90 that they are actually paid by the state to take care of, potholes and snow plowing, so on and so forth. And I know
Actually,
the
no,
town
they're not.
meeting, I'm sorry?
actually, the state doesn't pay him for that because that's Chapter 90 money that the state doesn't give to unaccepted roads. That's
Oh,
exactly.
I thought that Grandy told us that,
The town pays for that. The town pays for that. The town pays for that so that they can get a fire truck up and down your road, an ambulance up and down your road.
okay,
The town assumes those responsibilities, and this is why we're trying very hard now between Shallow Ponds and Thorndike and the
Right.
town to come to an agreement where your roads are accepted, so
Right.
that this burden doesn't fall back on the homeowners, that it falls on the entire town.
Right.
But as far as potholes in your road, as far as snow plowing and things like that, the town of Plymouth pays that bill.
so I guess I got some bad information, and I will go back and take a look at that. We understood that it was agreed or was voted on at town meeting that certain unaccepted roads are plowed, and they do have minor modifications that are done to them, like pothole repair, so on and so
And it's
forth.
for public safety,
Right.
basically.
Okay,
Because a fire truck has to get to you.
Right.
Or an ambulance has to get to you. That's more important than a whole bunch of things. So the town takes money.
Right.
And does those kind of things. The town also gets state-funded money, but that state-funded money goes to roads that have been accepted.
well, I thank you for educating me on that. I won't, thank you, I understand that now. So we do know that we'd like to, or we ask that Thorndike, and they're very
Anyway,
willing
Ma'am,
to do this.
there's other people.
Right, to help us have our roads accepted. We have a meeting on Wednesday with them, which I think will be very productive, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Is there someone else that would like to speak, either in favor or opposition? Sir, and then I'll get to you. And Mr. Kelly, I certainly want to hear from you.
I just want to ask more of a question, and I hope people on Kathleen don't get mad at me, and this is for Thorndike and
Yes,
potential
what's your
future
name,
meetings.
please?
Joseph White, 54 Donna Drive.
Thank you.
My question would just be the attachment where it attaches to Andrews. Is the plan, especially with Donna Drive being so beat up, to continue to go down Kathleen that we know it's funded to actually be paved, and that's the last piece to be connected? Or are you going to connect that first and then start going through Donna, beating up the road more?
Direct all your questions to us. If they want to get involved in that, they will afterwards, please.
Sure. So again, I just want to know the plan on attaching it to Andrew. Is the construction still going to go down Kathleen until, and that's going to be the last piece to be attached to minimize the damage on Donna Drive because it's already beat up? Or is the plan to open up that attachment first so you can save on gas, and now you're beating up another road even worse than it is?
I'm sure that somewhere along the line, that will come out.
I just want to make sure it's asked.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. There was a lady, yes. Please come to the, only because it's being recorded in the other room, and they,
My name is Deborah Wiskerta. I am a resident of 85 Andrews Way, which is the house that is right next to where Andrews Way is coming to attach to. So basically, people have already said, I'm just questioning, they're putting in 32 more houses. They're going to be up to my backyard. Okay, I know they can do that. They are going to be bringing up trucks and stuff up Donna Drive. They won't be going up Kathleen Drive. They'll be coming up Donna Drive and then up to Andrews Way. I definitely think that not only do you need to look at Kathleen Drive, but also Donna Drive, and right now, yeah, Andrews Way is a little bit better because people don't drive down there around there as much. They either go up Donna Drive or go up Kathleen Drive. But that definitely needs to be looked at. So I don't think you should be just looking at Kathleen Drive. I think you really need to look at Donna Drive too. My other question was on the water retaining sites. I noticed there's a water retaining site right behind the houses that are on Andrews Way there. Is there a reason why that water retaining site is right there, right behind our houses?
Ma'am,
Where there would be,
just,
I'm sorry, where there would be, mosquitoes and things like that? That's my question. It seems kind of close to the back of our houses.
okay, we'll see if they want to answer that or if they
Okay.
come with a conclusion. But we can't have dialogue
Right.
between,
Oh,
it's,
it's fine.
is there anything else?
No, just having the roads taken care of besides Kathleen Drive,
Okay,
you know.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Kelly, please.
My name is John Kelly, 61 Shallopon Lane. I'm the president of the Shallopon HOA. First question, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You are going to keep public comment open?
If this hearing is continued, yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But, and let me clarify that a little bit. If this hearing stays open and we don't get into deliberation, and if this hearing is still open and there's proposals that need to be ironed out, then I am definitely going to leave public comment open. But I'm also not going to let everybody that speaks come back and do another whole round of speaking. What we're trying to do now is come to a compromise of some sort, come to some conclusions, and if we have to continue it, when we come back, they will present the new information. If it is minor, in the board's opinion, public comment will be open, and some people can comment. If it's real major, then folks like you, the homeowners association president, and people that have legitimate questions, I probably am going to let that happen. But for right now, it's one bite at the apple.
All right, because in the past, public comment seemed to be closed the first night, and then we were dead for the rest of every meeting.
Well, this is now.
Good, okay. All right. One of the points I do want to make is we talked about getting Kathleen Drive accepted by the town. I'm going to ask this board and every board that I can get in front of to help us get our unaccepted roads accepted. There are 6 roads in Shallopon Estate.
We have no...
I know.
We're just
But you
private
have a
citizens
voice.
like you.
You have a voice.
Oh, of course.
Okay? We're asking for help. We need help. When people from the ZBA speak, people listen. We're asking for help. We need help. If we can get our roads accepted, that will solve a lot of issues.
And
The right ones don't listen.
I understand that, but
that's what we're trying to do right now. Come to a compromise where everybody can look at each other and smile enough to say, it's not exactly what I want, but it'll work.
But I want the board to understand that my goal and the people of Shallopond's goal is to get all 6 roads accepted, because if we just get Kathleen accepted, that leaves 5 roads with the same issues.
But, okay.
Do you understand my goal?
I do, but, we're working on Kathleen Drive right now. The other roads, people aren't running up and down with construction trucks in and out of that.
But if
to
there's a
get-
water, if there's a, excuse me.
To get to that project. And this is what we're talking about, access to the project. And the damage or wear and tear that is done during construction to access for the project. The side roads are I read your letter, and I commend you for asking, but I think you're asking for a little more than is reasonable. Kathleen Drive, Donna, all right. The rest of them, it took 52 years to get my road accepted. Stand in line.
You should know you should know somebody in the town.
We got to wrap this up. Where were you when I needed help?
I was just a resident of Shallow Pond Lane. That didn't know if a water main broke, that there was nobody, that the town dropped the ball many years ago, and now we're asking the town to pick the ball back up. Right now, if the ZBA will allow us, we are talking very nicely with the people from Thorndike. We are going back and forth to see if we can come to some agreement that will work for both of us. We don't, like Mr. Conroy said, we're not attorneys. We're not the best negotiators in the world. I'd like the board to give us a little bit of time to sit down, talk to each other, to see if we can come to something that we believe between us is fair. Present it to the board. You guys have much more knowledge in negotiating than we do. Present it to the board, and then get your feedback. See what we missed. Is that presentable to the board?
Well, actually, no, and I'll tell you why. You're a resident, an abutter, an aggrieved person in theory, maybe not, I don't know, but this petition is filed by Thorndike, and if there's going to be a continuance, it's them that will ask for it. If this board feels that there's a necessity for a continuance. But to have an abutter or somebody that is not named on the petition ask for a continuance, can't do it. I understand it. I sympathize with it, but legally, I can't do that. And I'm pretty sure that our town attorney will tell you that.
Mr. Chair, if I could just weigh in on that. I know this is a modification, but it is also a whole brand-new public hearing under 40B. So we technically have 180 days from tonight when we opened the public hearing that we would have to close the public hearing within 180 days. After the 180 days, we would need Thorndike's consent for further continuances of that time frame. But within that 180 days, it's within the board's purview to say we need.
Yes, it's the board's.
Right. You are correct, Mr. Chair, that it is not a third
Yes.
party who gets to make that request. You're correct.
It's interesting. Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Someone else wants to speak. All right. Yes, sir. Go right ahead. See if you can clear this.
You've had more than 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
3.5.
We are working as hard as we can to find common ground. The proposal that we put before you this evening to take responsibility for bringing Kathleen Drive fully up to town standards is frankly a stretch for us. Honestly, from our perspective, while we're very respectful of the Shallow Ponds position, we could just as easily, and I think it might be appropriate to say, okay, we'll pay 50% of the cost to upgrade Kathleen Drive and 50% to upgrade Donna Drive, because there's no way that we're responsible for 100% of the Kathleen Drive situation. And as I've said, and I'm very appreciative of the dilemma that Shallow Pond was put in, the cost to bring these roads up to snuff is far more than it should be, because they have not been maintained as they should have been for the last 30 years. So we are being asked to take on that responsibility as well. Personally, my assessment of this is that if one of these primary roads is brought fully up to standards as the DPW determines and put before town meeting and approved by town meeting, it sets a wonderful precedent if the Shallow Pond Estates people can get their act together and start to take responsibility financially for upgrading the remainder of their roads. But I do not feel that we can go any further. Now, we're happy to move the chess pieces around a little bit, and to the extent that this board feels that the proposal on the table to take responsibility for not only bringing Kathleen Drive up to this town standard sufficient for the DPW to recommend acceptance, but also assisting Shallow Pond in that acceptance process, we certainly would not be opposed to adding to that a condition that, or any equivalent thereof, that ultimately Shallow Pond wants to propose that we would find acceptable. In other words, if there's some adjustment to that. But what I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned, is that we're very pleased to be able to report that we only have 3 market rate homes left to sell in Phase 2A. And we are seeing an improvement in the market after 2024 was the slowest year in 30 years for sales. We are anxious to move forward, and ultimately that's what's most important to everyone in this room. You know, we need to get this project underway and completed. So I have not heard this evening, we are more than willing, as we always have been, to accept as a condition that we satisfy the DPW, that we satisfy staff with we satisfy the fire department on these technical issues. But all of our discussion from the audience this evening is referencing Shallow Pond, as opposed to issues related, other than Mr. Peck's points that he raised, which I believe we can address as part of the condition in terms of riprap or whatever the case may be on a 2-to-1 slope. I would ask the board to consider a vote this evening with conditions. If that's not where the board is, as pointed out, you certainly have the authority to extend, and we will continue to work with folks. But this conversation has actually been going on for 18 months because we talked about it in Phase 2A.
I have a thought here. Originally, when I looked at this, I was hoping that we could get through this evening.
Okay.
But a proposal that you just made, a verbal proposal that you just made is not strong enough. I need to see something in writing.
Okay.
As far as what you're willing to do with Kathleen Drive, what you're willing to do to bring it up, to get it into the system, to get it accepted. And in that language, I would probably want it to state somewhere along the line that you are in it until it is accepted.
Or denied.
Or denied, yes, but it ain't going to get denied. I know a little bit about this.
So am I going to have to make, no, never mind.
But
until there's a vote of town meeting.
And I think the board would be a lot more comfortable, and I'll get to you in a minute, Ed, if this was a proposal that was put on paper and that we could read through, and that the people at Shallow Ponds could see, all those folks on Kathleen Drive and everything could see exactly what, black and white, what's proposed. And I think you're on to something, but that's my feeling. Now, what the board wants to do, I don't know.
So I think it's very valid, what you said. I'd also like to see what the planning board has to say and what the DPW has to say. And I think it's fine that we don't make a vote tonight.
I 100% agree. I want to see the DPW report. I want to see, I know it just came out, but I need to see it before I take a vote.
How do you guys feel about that? And you know, probably if we continue this hearing, I'd like to see those slopes addressed so
Okay.
that David's not upset.
I like the beard, by the way. Last time I saw you, you didn't
I've got
have a
some
beard.
questions on a couple of things. Snow removal, what happens then?
Dave?
Where is all that gonna go? It just doesn't go away.
So I believe, actually, I believe we've included a snow plan in our response to the DPW, is that correct? Yeah, so that's, and as part of our responses to the DPW comments, we have a snow storage plan. So that's where it's shown. But it's, you pick, general spots where there's no parking, and there's actually quite a good amount of them on the site.
What about rubbish?
Rubbish will be curbside. There's no central dumpster proposed here. But we've designed our architecture with little storage areas, even for the top floor units that are on the ground floor, so that they have easy access. They're enclosed until they need to be put on the street.
And is it all by one contractor? I mean, do you
So it could
control
be,
that, or is there gonna be, like every other neighborhood, 17 trucks a week in there?
so there are two associations. So for Alden's Reach, I can say there will be one contractor. For Sawmill, currently, I believe that there are multiple contractors, but nope, you got it. They fixed that. So there's one contractor for Sawmill. We will probably coordinate and negotiate one contract for the entire community. That will happen for a number of kind of landscaping contracts and that type of thing, where we'll try to get the best bulk discount by hiring one person to do everything, even though one might fall in Sawmill, one might fall in Alden's Reach.
Okay. Do you have something that you wanted to say? Anyone else? What would the board like to do?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just some information based on where it seems this is going. So we spoke with Lee Hartman earlier today, and he made us aware that there's a slot that we could fit into for the March 12th Planning Board meeting. So to the extent that you're looking for a recommendation from the Planning Board, if we could be continued until whatever your next meeting is after March 12th, that should give us adequate time to wrap things up with DPW, get a more formal letter from the fire department, address the riprap slope, continue our conversations with Shallow Pond, and deal with the Planning Board.
No, we're not. No, well, that isn't a big one. That's not going to be that hard. And then you got that. It won't be the 17th, no, because there is a contentious hearing that night. So it'll be what would it be?
April 7?
Phew. Hey,
You can't deal with us before the contentious
no.
or after the contentious?
No. If you saw what was and knew the circumstances, you'd understand.
It's putting us in a really tough spot. Then there's an appeal period. I mean, it means we're dead in the water till May.
I got, what did you say, Michael?
We were looking more for DPW. Do we actually need the planning board?
No, we don't need the planning board. We need the planning department and DPW to sit down and with you folks and iron it out. We really don't need to have you go back to the planning board.
Okay.
We need you to go to the planning people, go see Lee. Lee will get everybody in the room together that you need to sit down and work it out.
So is there a time earlier? Is there?
I was
when-
asking because could we fit it in the third with half the land is?
No.
No.
No. No, they,
You think it's going to be that bad on the 17th?
this won't take long.
This
This,
shouldn't take long either.
Go for the 17th.
I think we can't participate on the 17th.
That's the CPA.
hmm?
St. Patrick's Day. It's the high holiday. No.
And you're going to be in town. I guess, be prepared to spend a long night.
I'll get a motel room.
It's okay.
You're going to have to stay here. You won't be able to go home.
No, because I'll make that last case. They'll go before that.
Oh, okay.
I'm Polish, but I'm not that bad.
Are you going to have all of your seated members? I'm going to be away on the 17th. So I don't know whether I'm.
You're not seated on
I'm not
this.
voting. I'm not sitting.
So-
I'm not even sure you have enough time.
Yeah, so that's, you're not going to be here. But Wallace is here now, so he's been participating in the whole meeting, so we're covered. Are you going to be here?
Yes.
Are you going to be here?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Are you going to be here?
I'm here. I don't think we should do it.
I know, but we're going to do it that night, I guess.
Well, I'm thinking about the other one, the appeal. Who wasn't going to be here now?
I'm not going to be here the 17th.
Okay, so we got a problem right there, right?
Yeah, now
Not
we,
going to be able to full board for that.
So we're going to, that's going to have to be either postponed, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to recuse yourself,
I
you
do.
have to recuse yourself, and possibly, we're not sure yet about Tom. And if
yeah,
the
we
other
are
two
sure.
gone, that only leaves you and me.
I do.
I do. And why do I?
No, you, I understand.
Yeah, I'll talk to you after
He's a member of the board, he's a member of the foundation.
the foundation.
So what I'm saying is, so that opens that up, because we're gonna have to postpone that, we haven't got a choice.
So good, so now you're all set.
Excellent.
You don't have to get that hotel room.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe,
Maybe.
Anyway.
yeah, but be prepared, like Boy Scouts. So, okay, let's get this back here. Folks, there is so much new information and so many twists in this presentation this evening that we don't know what we're being presented with, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to leave the public comment open, like I said I would, and we're going to continue this hearing until, what, March the 17th, at sometime after 7 p.m. And, no, not 7 a.m. Huh. And at that point, I'm hoping that enough of you folks have talked to Thorndike and seen their proposal that you all understand it, and it will give us an opportunity to really look at what they're proposing, and it will give the town an opportunity to negotiate with them to make it as possible, as probable as it can be that eventually Kathleen Drive will get accepted as a town road. And I think from what I'm hearing tonight, that's everybody's real objective, to get their street as a town road. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Can we, since the time will be March 17th, and they have an invite to the planning board on the 14th, can we still ask for a report from the planning board?
We won't get it in time.
We might. You're the 12th? Oh, tons of time. I mean, I think we should
Yeah.
just have a complete file, just like we always do.
Well, yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, just to
I
ask.
I don't know if this is appropriate, because it's on the agenda. We're putting it out in public that it's going to be at 7 o'clock, but aren't we going to be discussing starting at an earlier time?
We haven't,
We'll set that on the public hearing.
you're,
Okay.
you're crossing a bridge that isn't there yet. Slow down.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you have a motion?
I asked for a motion.
I'd make a motion that we continue case 3 to...
No, 4-1-5-1.
Nope, he's right.
3284.
8284.
4151, it's a brand new case.
No, this is the public notice.
Yes, case number and /4151 is the new case number.
Okay. What's it, is that the old one? 32?
3284 is the old one.
You're confusing us here today.
The OpenGov case number is just a reference number. That's, the original case is 3284, correct, Carolyn? Yes. Yeah.
I thought earlier tonight you actually read 41-51. Is
I
that-
actually read he referenced that, but I read from the public hearing notification 3284.
Okay, then that's the number you should use.
Okay.
I'm going to try that once more. Once more. So I make a motion that we continue case 3284 and any other numbers to March 17th, time to be determined. We'll ask the applicant to come with get us the planning board report if possible, comments from DPW, and the possible potential agreement between the parties.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
No time.
You should at least indicate the start time of the meeting, whether, even if you just say 7 o'clock at this point.
Yes,
Well, it will be 7 because the other cases were advertised at 7.
all of them are advertised at 7, and then that way it gives us the flexibility of,
Whichever one goes first.
sometimes somebody's got a little porch to take care of, and we've got a Thorndike, and we don't want to make the little porch wait. We do them all at 7 o'clock, then it makes it,
Is my motion okay? or did I
your
mess it
motion
up
is
again?
fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Connor and second by Mr. Leary to move this meeting to March the 17th at 7 p.m. to bring back a planning board report, the different departments' reports, and some kind of a proposal as to your final, whatever, your final proposal, I guess. All those in favor? It's unanimous. I will see you on March the 17th. Thank you very much. One other thing, ladies and gentlemen, we have a 7-day thing for anybody that wants to send letters and stuff. I guess some came in today that we haven't read, but the ones that got here before then, we all read them. So if you're going to send any material in, make sure it's 7 days before the 17th. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Yes, she was. Are you leaving? Sorry.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next case is case 4135, and I was not sitting on it. It's just an informal for one of the conditions, and Mike will take care of that.
Is there anyone presenting, or are you?
I mean, I can present if I need to. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So I represent Jay McKinnon Company. We're doing an addition. It's on, yeah. So I represent Jay McKinnon Company. We're doing an addition for Dana Anderson at 26 Shore Drive. This has been, went through a pretty long process getting approvals. We had to move the addition forward. We got a variance for the addition. Having the existing building, small one-car garage, we were able to build off of that, and then we had to bump the addition forward to meet the setbacks. So the architect had a plan, a detail in the initial drawings where it's a three-car garage, and two of the garage bays were 2 feet forward, and then the last bay sat back 2 feet. It was more of a detail in the design of the building. When the modifications were made for the variance so that we could get the addition approved, it turns out that that section that bumps in now is only a 20-foot deep garage, and it doesn't necessarily fit all of the vehicles that they have. So they're looking for the 2-foot bump in the actual footprint to go back even across the front. So the slight change is the entire front is going to be, I think it's like 30-something feet across the front. 35 feet is all straight. And the reason why we went back is there's a 31.5 approved variance you gave us on the front right corner. And then the left corner, I think, was 33.5. So we're looking for that one-car bay on the left side to be moved out so that we can have consistent 22-foot garage space.
Any questions from the board, or? And I'm trying to think who was on this. Everybody except for one.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say, only other thing I would add is that we're not looking to encroach that 31.5 feet.
Who signed it?
Tom, huh? Oh, I got it right here, yeah.
We're just looking to make it across the front even.
So, any questions from Tom? Well, anybody, really. I mean, I'm fine with it. Okay. All right, so the members that voted on this were myself, Peter, Ed, Kevin, and Tom. So, do I hear a motion? Pete?
I make a motion that on case 4135 that we review the
Conditions.
change plan as a minor modification.
Second? And all in favor? There we go.
Okay, we have...
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
We got the-
No, you didn't.
You didn't enjoy it that much.
We didn't enjoy it either.
All right, we've got a couple more things to go through. One of them is the minutes from December the 16th, is that correct? Yep. I've got the right ones?
I looked at that and
That was fine.
And I have as well.
Same here.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? So approved.
Making it too easy for
And the last thing that we want to discuss is changing the meeting times. And I'm going to let Denise talk about this for a minute. Go right ahead, dear.
Just proposing that the meeting time be moved up? If, I don't know the suggestion of time, everybody kind of weighed in and
Routinely, don't meetings start at 7 in the building?
No.
No?
No, the building committee starts at 6:30. So
Some start at 4. The Board of Health is at 4 o'clock. So you can make it whatever time you want.
Yeah, but
Jason?
well, at 4 o'clock, you don't get people to come.
Well, yes.
No, but in fairness, the selectmen are doing either 6 or 6:30. And I'm okay with 6 o'clock. Gets us out of here a little earlier, and we've had nights where,
No, it doesn't.
boy, oh boy.
It's just going to be, we're adding more cases on.
No? No.
I'd rather 6:30 than 6, but
Well,
that's me.
what say you?
I can go either way. I don't care.
Yeah, same here.
So I'm okay moving forward, and whatever the majority wants and what time I'll go along. I'm good with 6 or 6:30, whatever the committee wants.
David?
6 or 6:30, fine with me too.
I'd like to see 6.
Okay.
Get us out of here earlier.
And get Denise
Put
out
that in
there.
writing, please, that you'll get us out of here earlier.
Everybody but you.
Yeah.
In fairness to Denise, it's been a long day for her, and when the last couple of meetings, we got out of here real late. So, and I don't care about Jason. Hey, he gets the big money.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, the 2 cents together anyways, right? No, I don't, I think the only thing about the time is that you consider it effective. The audience, some people work and need to come home from work, and then come here, so making it early is great for us. Put it at 4:30 and we can come right here immediately after work, but it might be a little unfair to some of those people that need to come after work on their own. So 6 o'clock, I think, is personally a reasonable time to allow people to get there.
They often whine if it's too late, all right, so.
I don't care.
6 o'clock's okay with me. It's all
6
right.
o'clock.
I don't want to be the thorn in your side.
Do we need a vote?
Yes.
Okay.
We need not only a vote, we need somebody to make a motion.
But before we do that, how does it affect our advertised?
Well,
Well, we
this
can't
will.
do it till April.
First, we're gonna set a time, and then we're gonna talk about that.
Well, then I would move, we move the meetings starting when we can, or maybe, should we say, the April meeting?
Mm-hmm.
To 6 p.m.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? And this is an entire board. It's unanimous. Now, let's talk about when this goes into effect. You need to make sure that anything that's been advertised, we're gonna have to stick with
It would be April 7th. And I just scheduled Canaan. They're coming back for a major modification on the canopy on the gas station. Well, you sent them away saying
No, we
it.
sent them away. That was the one at the corner of South Street.
Right. Oh, no, I know it. I remember they changed the canopy sign closeness to the street.
Yeah.
Oh, we did send them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Try and get your truck in there. I can't get mine in there.
Not even.
So I would let them know that that would be 6 o'clock instead of 7. And that's all I have for April right now.
Okay. So that's it.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Hey, what is the horsepower of that?
455. It's got a lot of scat to it. I don't drive it, it's just parked.
Oh, no, too much salt, dirt.
It's covered up in the hangar.
Yeah. 455 right from
It's a
out of
vet
the
engine,
box.
yeah, small.
So that's gonna be the LS3?
I don't know that much about it.
I think so. Because I was looking at the,
All I know is it